there's always levers you can pull. Money is choice. When we have it, we can make choices. When we don't, we can't.
The idea of having to go and ask a man for money.
I have met so many women who have waited for a decade for people to notice their brilliance. This is a little mini masterclass in negotiating salary.
Sonya Lennon, you are very welcome to Money Talks. I've interviewed you many times over the years, and one thing that always jumps out is you always deliver very smart advice, no matter what you do.
No pressure.
No matter what the topic, there's always something that I'm like that's solid advice. So to jump straight into it, what's the best money advice you've ever received?
Well, that's a categorical answer for me, because when I left school, I threw my hat at college. I decided I just wanted to get into the workplace. I was really keen to have money in my pocket, to not have to ask for money from anybody else. And I started to work in fashion retail. And very soon into that journey, I realised I wanted to be a stylist, which I was for 20 years. And when I came home and told my parents at the age of 20 that I was going freelance and I was going to become a stylist, my dad, who worked in the bank all his life, said to me, if you are going freelance, you have to take out a pension, because nobody is responsible for your future financial self except you. And I did it, and it started very, very small. But when I look now at the benefit of that accrual over time, it was literally the best advice I could have ever got. And, you know, nobody was even thinking about pensions at that time. But I laid down the foundations and kind of reviewed it year on year, originally through the bank when they used to do these kind of appraisals. And then latterly, I suppose, in the last kind of 4 years, since I've really kind of intensified my interest in money and the language of money and how we approach money, I've been working with a financial advisor and working with Standard Life to really get the message of pensions out there and the importance of it. And I think for me, you know, the best time to take out a pension is either 20 years ago or today. So I think what stops a lot of people is fear. Fear that they've left it too late. There's always levers you can pull. And I know we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how we live with money on a day-to-day basis. But for me, that is the best advice I ever got.
And your mum, did she dispense any financial advice?
Well, not so much now. She is in residential care with advanced dementia, but she was... yes, a very generous giver of advice when we were growing up. I've often talked about the fact that her catchphrases were always have your running away money. If you're not part of the revenue, you're not part of the decision making. A man is not a plan. So for her, it was about be autonomous, have agency, get your own money. And for her, she was a career woman all through my childhood and my sister's childhood. She worked, she was cabin crew with Aer Lingus. She worked in the tourism industry. And so she was kind of self-defined. And she always said that her idea of hell was having to ask somebody else for money. And I think I've carried that with me.
Yes. Now, that's beautiful advice. I'm going to have to kind of bring this a little bit into, I'm going to have to go a bit lowbrow here. When you say that to me, it makes me think of Erica Jane.
Erica Jane.
So she is the Real Housewives.
Oh, I don't watch it, sorry.
But she said something like that. She talked about the idea of having to go and ask a man for money when that dynamic comes in. It's you exchange a little bit of your autonomy
agency
and your agency
100%.
And it always I know it's the Real Housewives, but it always stayed with me that, you know, you're kind of reducing yourself a little bit.
Well, look, not necessarily, I would say, and I'm sure there's people listening to this podcast that say, you know, I made a decision to take time out to raise my family, and therefore the dynamic around money is different.
Sure.
Okay, so normal is every one of us has our own normal, and I think we have to be aware of that. For me, it's not something I could do, and it was really important for me to build my own revenue all through my life and to move through my career with that in the background. It doesn't mean that that's the right direction for everybody. However, Erica Jane, there is a little bit of power in money, a power dynamic. Money is choice. When we have it, we can make choices. When we don't, we can't. So I think, look, I love that we're having this conversation now. I love that we're beginning to talk about what money means, not just for what it can buy, but for how it impacts our lives at every stage, and also the awareness that so many people are struggling day by day to feed their families, to find somewhere to live. It's not an easy world out there, and so when I talk about pensions, the reason that this is important to me is because of the work that we do with Work Equal. I founded Work Equal 12, 13 years ago to help give women, particularly some men also, women the support to build sustainable careers, to get jobs that created sustainable income for them and their families. And so the natural progression for me is, how do we take those women now and help to protect them into their future lives, their second lives, the next stage? Because, if we get to the cliff and there's no plan in place, we fall off the edge, and nobody wants that.
Yeah. I imagine a lot of the women who come through Work Equal are going through something of a confidence crisis. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the common denominator. So the women that we serve, and we're, currently rolling out a roadshow model around the country. So we're getting to as many regional hubs as we can, because we have a boutique on Ellis Quay where we have, it's full of niche recycled workwear that has been donated by our corporate partners and individuals. We have styling services. We dress these women. We give them clothing. We give them HR skills. We give them messaging to succeed at interview, and all of that service is free, paid for by our corporate partners and grants and philanthropy and some government funding. But I suppose, yes, the common theme is that their confidence has been knocked, and that could be somebody who fell out of education early. It could be somebody who has been extracted from sex trafficking. It could be a woman who lives in Dublin 4 who's recently divorced, who maybe never worked and suddenly has to work. Sure. So the span of stories is enormous. The common theme is just that they need the support, the ballast to put themselves forward and to be successful, and to trust themselves and their stories.
Yeah. What about salary negotiation as part of that journey that they go through? Because you get them, I know that you kind of tool them up to get them into the interview process. Do they then come back to you and say, I've got an offer, it's not quite what I wanted? Do you help them at that stage?
Totally.
Okay.
And so they work with one-to-one mentors who can help to guide them through all of the stages. And the thing about Work Equal is, once you're a client for life, and that relationship that you build with your mentor can continue. So it's everything from pay negotiations. Are we negotiating our pensions while we're negotiating our pay?
Sure.
How are we positioning ourselves? And one piece of advice that I give people all the time is, negotiate like you're negotiating for your best friend. Because if it was our best friend going for it, we'd be like, no, don't accept that, you're worth so much more than that. Speak to yourself like your own best friend.
Yes. And it's funny, you started a pension in your 20s, and the difference between starting in your 20s and your 30s is phenomenal, but likewise, I often think what might have happened for me personally if I had been able to negotiate a better salary in my 20s. What would the cumulative effect of that be? I often think, what's the add-on, and what would that look like now?
I hate to tell you, Katie, it's enormous.
Yeah, right.
So here's the thing. This is a little mini masterclass in negotiating salary. I have met so many women who have waited for a decade for people to notice their brilliance. Okay, the first decade of their career, they work really hard, they achieve incredible things, and they wait for the tap on the shoulder. It is a generalisation. Not everybody does that, but I've met so many women who have said, if only I'd known when I went into the workplace that I could advocate for myself. without being seen as pushy. And it is possible. So when you go into your role, your starting salary, by the way, sets the bar for your earnings for life. Okay, so it is a critical negotiation at that point. But when we are, you know, talking to our line manager and we're saying, okay, this is great, my foot is in the door. This is what I see myself being, doing, contributing, achieving in the next 6 months to a year. Can I run this by you and say, does this align with, you know, your KPIs from me? How can I show you how much value I can add? Right. Okay. So what does that look like? And you set the targets over and above the targets that are set for you automatically. You go back to your line manager and you say, okay, that I've done that and actually I smashed it. What will we do next that's going to get me to here? And can you help me? Can you sponsor me to move forward? And this is the direction I think I'm moving in, because I think so many of us don't even think about the next steps. We're so busy in the doing of the day that we're not kind of looking forward and strategizing and thinking, well, what could I do?
So you're good at doing it from a career point of view, you know, having these, you might even call it an uncomfortable conversation, but that to me sounds a little bit uncomfortable. What do you like with other slightly uncomfortable conversations about money? Are you good at, say, if somebody owed you money, would you be good at asking for it back?
It depends, because sometimes money goes out that might be nominally a loan, but you know it's not actually. You know the person needs it.
Yes.
And in that situation, I would probably just never mention it again. Not a big lender of money anyway, or indeed a borrower, except for institutional.
Sure.
And uncomfortable conversations around money. I tell you what I would do, and this is an example. A friend of mine was thinking about moving house, upscaling her house, upscaling her mortgage, and she said to me, "Oh, you know, you did such an amazing job on your house. It must have cost a lot of money." And she was a little bit icky saying it, you know. And I told her how much the work cost. I told her how much our mortgage is now. I told her how much our monthly repayments are, so that, because it costs me nothing to give that information, so that she could understand if she upscales her mortgage to that level, this is what she's going to be repaying, basically. And she kind of got a bit of a fright. She was like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to tell me that." And I was like, "But that's okay." And I think that's the level of discomfort that we have around money in this country. We don't like discussing the figures of it.
Yes.
We don't like sharing our salary. We don't, in the States, no problem. Everybody's delighted to tell you what they're earning, delighted to tell you what they've contributed to their 401k.
Yeah.
We just feel very uncomfortable about that. And actually, what happened from that conversation was a sort of a normalization about talking about the actual numbers.
Yes.
And then you can move on and have a meaningful discussion about, well, you know, what would that look like if I did X, Y, or Z?
So that brings to mind pay transparency, which you'd be a long time advocate of that through Work Equal. That is coming down the tracks now. How do you think it's going to play out? You know, on a day to day and on a very kind of like water cooler level.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting, and I think there's, with all of these big ticket issues, there are two sides to it. So there's the sort of systemic impact and the individual impact. Okay, and without looking at both sides of that, you don't get the full picture. So I've been advocating for over a decade, originally for gender pay gap reporting, which is now in place. What's interesting about this year, and I will come back to pay transparency in a minute, what's interesting about this year is it's the first year that the mandate has gone to companies with 50 employees or more. Okay, and that is a significant drop from 150, which it was last year. Now, there are inherent challenges for companies in that the lower the amount of staff you have, the more difficult it is to get statistical balance, actually. So the challenges at the moment with gender pay gap reporting is that it's still stuck in a compliance bucket. You know, people are thinking, I have to do this. They're not thinking, wow, look at the impact of addressing it.
Yes.
We need to move people forward and say, what are the actions that you're taking and what are the outputs of those actions? And look how your business can thrive if you create diverse decision-making tables, diverse leadership teams. We haven't got there yet. It's still a very embryonic approach to gender pay gap reporting. So when we go forward then and we look at pay transparency on a sort of a macro level, what we look at then is a mapping of salaries by sector in Ireland. Wonderful. I think they should be giving that to kids before they choose their junior cert
Couldn't agree more.
subjects. Never mind their leaving cert subjects.
I know.
Okay?
I wish
So
somebody told me to get into finance.
we make these decisions in isolation of the impact that they're going to have in our lives. And guess what? When that information becomes available and we suddenly see in broad daylight the sectors that we undervalue as a society, and by the way, the sectors that work the hardest to create the most positive impact, the teachers, the care workers,
Nurses,
the facility workers, you know, all these people who are the glue, the social glue, and we undervalue them. And when we get to a point where we have this salary mapping and you know, parents of young children are sitting down together and thinking, well, what would you like to do? Would you like to live in this quadrant or that quadrant? And by the way, I'm not just saying that all decisions should be made on money, but that will impact the decisions that people make. It will then make the people who work in those sectors that are underpaid more valuable and in turn increase their salaries, because we will see that. I mean, we already see it. You know, people are moving away from those careers. We need to really seriously think about how we fund those services in our society.
Yes.
Oh, we were all over them during COVID when they were the only ones working, and then we forgot.
Yes. What about you? Like in terms of going for a career with money, because you're a social entrepreneur, you're also a commercial entrepreneur. How is that for you? Like, is there a certain amount of money that you want to have that, like, in your bank account each month? Is there
there is, and the balance is tricky. And I've been through serious undulations in my earning power throughout my career. And now, because of some of the troughs, I am much more mindful of my time. So I audit my time in my calendar every week, color coded. What is, you know, revenue generating? What is advocacy? At the same time, I know that the advocacy work that I do builds a sort of a magnetism for me as a speaker in the corporate sphere.
Yes.
So the advocacy work is not all. I mean, I'm doing it from an authentic place,
Sure.
but it also generates revenue in a roundabout way. And, you know, I'm at a point in my career where I feel everything is shifting, you know, everything is kind of almost up for grabs. And I think there's kind of these moments of alignment where you can see a whole new vista. And it's as scary as previous vistas, but also as exciting. And I think one thing about my career, I mean, I stood in a pharmacy in the early days of Lennon Courtney and Frock Advisor, when I had 3 startups on the go. So I had I had Dress for Success, Frock Advisor and Lennon Courtney all in startup mode. I don't recommend it. It was horrendous. And I stood in a pharmacy and cried because I didn't have $7.99 to pay for a foot exfoliator. I couldn't justify spending that money because things were so tight. And, you know, I've been there. Not in a kind of everything was going to fall apart way, because there's all sorts of cushions based on the privilege that I come from and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't have it in my pocket. Sure. And I didn't have it in my bank account, knowing other outgoings that were coming in. So I kind of have this inherent feeling in me that I will always be okay. And that even when things are bad, I have the smarts to rectify it. So now that's the process that I'm in at the moment. I'm making sure that the time that I spent unlocking my earning potential is adequate. I don't need millions. I really don't need millions. I know what I need, and it's enough for me. And also, I think through time, my tastes and my needs have simplified.
Okay. Okay. Can you give me an example of that?
I know what makes me happy, and it is simple stuff. It's really simple stuff. It's spending time with friends and family. It's swimming in the sea. It's drinking champagne.
Yeah.
I have to throw that in there.
Yeah.
It's not all wholesome,
Yeah.
but it's, good food, good wine, a bit of travel. I have never felt the need to be dripping in the latest handbag. I have some nice jewelry, but it's okay. It's okay. And I think what happens is then, we're moving closer to being able to chunk out a piece of our mortgage. That's going to change the landscape of our outgoings. So it's constantly shifting.
Yes.
It's constantly a graphic equalizer of ins and outs as you move through your life. And I think then, to go back to the pension piece, it's what do you need to live the life you want to live, not some arbitrary bucket of money that somebody says you need in isolation from reality. It's what do I need to live the life I want to live.
Yes. And I think so many people don't actually have that figure or number in mind. There's a sense
how
of...
can you, in a way?
Yeah.
Unless you intentionally do the work. And so one of the things that we do with Standard... So I'm a Second Life mentor with Standard Life. And that means opening up these conversations with men and women. But women are a whole separate thing as well. And that's why we... recorded two seasons so far of the Ultimate Guide to Women and Pensions. And honestly, if you're sitting here squirming in the chair listening to this going, I don't know what to do, listen to that podcast, because after obviously you've listened to this one to the end, because it is everything you need to know, simplified, totally accessible, no jargon, and literally do this and you'll be fine. And what do this and you'll be fine means is sit down and reflect, take the time, think about it, fill in the Second Life questionnaire, which is online on the Standard Life website, and ask those questions of yourself. What does good look like?
Yes.
What do I want my life to be? Because it comes around real fast, and my dad always says time is like a toilet roll. The closer you get to the end, the faster it goes. And that is so true,
Yeah.
So so a little bit of intentionality, taking the time, because we deserve it. And I think we find it very hard to put ourselves in the shoes of our future selves. Like there's some great stats. I think it's 42% of women in Ireland are uncomfortable talking about money.
Yeah.
46% are uncomfortable thinking about their pension.
Yeah.
And don't feel that they have the financial provision in place. Now that's the sort of stuff that keeps you awake at night.
Yes.
So just do something about it. And what that means is go and find your savvy friend who has the best hairdresser, always has the best bargains. Who's her financial advisor? Because you can be damned. If she has all that other stuff sorted, she has that sorted
there's
too.
one in every group, and they're great
There
at
is.
Excel. Google Sheets.
Yeah, exactly.
They're fantastic
Just
at
ask
it.
them, who's your financial advisor? Go and talk. And the great thing about that world now is that it's not necessarily about being sold stuff. A really good financial advisor will sit down and listen to you and help you to plan the outgoings and the incomings, and make sure that you're toggling all those levers every step of the way for the right outcome.
Yeah. What about your partner? Are you guys financially compatible?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, we back to my mom again. She always said, you have your own money, So we have our own accounts, and then we have the joint account for the mortgage and the bills and whatever else. And hopefully there's a little bit of surplus there for holidays and stuff like that. So yeah, and other than that, we're independent, and that's kind of a motif of our relationship. We come together very well, but we have our independence very well as well.
Nice.
And we do our own things. So yes, I think we are financially like I would be the financial organizer in the house.
Okay.
I manage all that stuff. It's just the way I'm wired, I guess, but the one thing I suppose that's through the work that I've been doing around pensions is, myself and Dave aren't married. and we've been together for over 30 years. But I have no entitlement to his pension. So he works, he's the president of IODT in Dún Laoghaire, and does an amazing job at it. So he's on a state pension. I have no entitlement to it if he dies. And I just don't think that is just in today's society, when so many people are living in partnerships without being legally married. The impact of that is enormous. And I remember talking to a divorce lawyer who said to me, okay, lovely to meet you. I gotta go now. Gotta go and talk to a silly little girl who forgot to get married.
Oh.
So there is, I'd love a legislative change
Yes.
around the acknowledgement of partnerships and pensions. I think that would be a savage result.
Yeah, absolutely. You're the mother of twins. You're the parents of twins. And I'm curious, what was that like finding out that you were going to become parents to twins, and, you know, the immediate extra costs that you start to factor in?
It really was almost a financial first decision because or response.
Sure.
Because, you know, I'm quite organised. We had booked our baby into said my husband works in education. We'd booked our baby into the Department of Education creche. And when we found out there were two at 20 weeks, I nearly died. And the plans for how to care for our baby that had suddenly become two babies were out the window, you know. And I, as you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. I was responsible for my own income. Nobody was going to top up my maternity benefit, so I had to get back to work. So we had to work around, you know. We had to think about how are we going to do this, and we had to get somebody into the house for the first while, and I'll tell you one thing, it's not two for the price of one. That's for absolute sure. It
Yes.
is not. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Having multiples. I can't imagine what 3 or 4 is like. But look, to be honest with you, the first year of their existence was such a blur to me that I can't really remember what happened.
This is what parents of twins always say.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I remember having a sort of a breakdown when they hit a year. I think because I finally unclenched and realised that I'd got them to this stage without killing them.
Yeah.
And that was like a sort of a dissolving of myself. And then you just pick yourself back up again and you go. And I wouldn't change a single thing. They're extraordinary humans, and they're 20 now, and they're wonderful.
Yeah. I only found out recently that you don't get double child benefit. You get, it's 1.5.
1.5.
I find that deeply,
Yeah.
grossly unfair.
Yeah.
It's not right.
No, it's not.
Can you campaign for that as well, please?
Yeah, no problem. Chalk it up.
Yeah. And what are they like with money? Has it gone down
They're
to the
good.
generations?
Yeah, they're good. I mean, we opened bank accounts for them really early on, and it was, you know, you put money away, you don't spend it all. So they have savings. They're also really hard workers. They're pretty financially independent of us, you know.
Okay.
Like that, they don't like asking for money. They're you know, they like being able to pay for their own stuff. So that has definitely travelled down the generations.
Yes, yes. I'd like to get into your businesses because you've had so many. And like I was saying, some are social enterprise, some are more commercial. What would you consider to be your greatest success? Or have you had it yet?
I don't know. I think that my career has been defined by this sort of funnel of democratization, right? So I started out as a fashion stylist, really kind of full of my own self-worth, you know, pretty self-important, and when I was asked to do Off the Rails with Brendan, I thought makeovers were beneath me. I thought, why would I sully myself with the general public and do makeovers? You know,
Yes.
I'm a fashion stylist.
Uh-huh.
I belong in the pages of glossy magazines and
Yes. I'm an
dressing.
artist.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have said artist now. Another word that starts with A, maybe, but and music videos and
Yes.
traveling in private jets to music festivals and so then I think what happened was when I saw the impact of giving those women the confidence to believe in themselves right now in the moment, that became a sort of a permission slip for them to go and do whatever they wanted. And myself and Brendan always campaigned to do revisits, because what those women did after that big reveal moment was extraordinary. They left no good fiancés, they bought camper vans, they went traveling, they set up businesses. They became like superheroes.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm obsessed with the concept of permission. Okay, so I think to do anything we need permission. We either need internal permission or external permission. Okay,
I couldn't agree more.
and so
yes.
and sometimes there are things that we haven't thought of yet,
Yeah.
and people give us permission to consider them.
Yes.
Okay, so until somebody says, "Well, have you thought about X?" You think, "Well, no." Because I didn't even know X existed. And so now when I look at, we moved through, you know, Lennon Courtney has had so many twists and turns in its story. We're now at Kilkenny Design and we're constantly remoulding that proposition. And I know we'll talk about that in a little while. We had an extreme failure with Frock Advisor, which we tried really hard to build this kind of online platform for boutiques and boutique shoppers. We came out of that in a managed failure. We learned so much. It hurt like hell, but that's okay. We're still here. And then I look forward then to taking what I learned from Off the Rails and applying it to Work Equal, and further democratizing that sort of makeover moment and the permission slip into women who really, really needed it. And the work that I do now as co-founder of Lift Ireland is around equipping people with the skills to improve their own personal leadership so that they can lead themselves and others with confidence. And where we're seeing real social impact there is it with the communities and the groups who really need it the most marginalised in our society. People who've been through the prison services, people who've been through drug addiction, people who live in extreme poverty. So we were working with one of our co-founders, David Hession. Myself and David fall in behind the leadership of Joanne Hession, whose idea Lift was. And David is doing a PhD on the social impact of Lift at the moment. And he spoke to people from drug addiction services, and they said, if I had known how to lead myself with resilience and compassion for myself, I might not have turned to heroin in the first place. So when you think about that, and that's a permission to lead yourself. And if you've grown up in a home or a community where nobody has given you permission to do that, you don't even know it's an option.
Yes, yes. You mentioned there what you called managed failure, which I like that. I've never heard that term before, and I'm curious that there seems to be two types of people after an entrepreneurial setback. Some will go away, lick their wounds, and never really re-emerge. It's like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me. And then there's others who have what they call like bounce back ability, resilience. What's the difference? How do you become the person who bounces back and starts again?
I think really one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and myself and Brendan have learned it together, is that nobody cares. Okay, so I often talk about the fact that we have this ball. I'm clenching my fist now, so my fist is a ball of experience. So this is what happens to us, and the other hand wraps around that, and that is our emotional response to that experience. And in the moment, it hurts like hell, but over time that emotional response recedes, and you're left with the facts. So when you can assess the facts, what happened? What did I learn? What can I do next? What opportunities does this unearth that wouldn't have happened otherwise? All of the biggest opportunities that came to me in my life were addressed as challenges and failures.
Yes.
So if you're in the good times, if you're swinging along and everything's going great, you tend not to innovate or iterate. unless it's really embedded in a system, in an organization. But as an individual, if everything's going great, you think, great, everything's going great, you just get on with it. You don't think about, well, what could I be doing better, or what could I be doing different, and failure and challenges afford you the opportunity to have that reflection.
Yes. What about money mistakes or things that you learned about managing money? And from a business point of view, is there anything that kind of jumps out that you now incorporate into your current businesses?
Well, I think we set up Lennon Courtney in a very particular way. So we set up independently originally, and for 3 years we really struggled. We couldn't make the model work. And by the way, fashion is so hard. Like it doesn't make any sense, right?
Yes.
And so we couldn't make it work as independent designers. It was killing us. The model was eating itself, and that's why we evaluated what we had, and approached Dunn's, went in and licensed the brand into Dunn stores, which we did for 7 years, really, really successfully. Through that process, we were able to cut out the wholesale margin, democratise the brand, and bring it to market for half the price that we had to charge because of wholesale. I think, we reached a kind of a natural end to that relationship, which was very respectful. And we saw in Kilkenny Design after that then the opportunity to grow the brand in a new way. And through that relationship and that partnership, we have grown into homewares, home fragrance, accessories, and are really kind of analytically assessing the business value of the brand through all of its elements, but it is a licensing model as well. So for us, that's very different to growing an empire.
Sure.
And there are benefits and there are drawbacks to that, but it allows us to have the business in the way that suits us.
Yeah. Specifically looking at Lennon Courtney, is there anything that has surprised you about consumer desires and what they want? I guess I'm asking like any surprising bestsellers.
What's interesting about the Kilkenny model is that we have had to almost start again.
Okay.
Because it's a new audience, it's a new team, it's a new system. Okay, so we have been blown away by the response to our accessories and our homeware. Blown away. And I suppose strategically we're also looking at how we remodel our clothing offering. So we have reduced it quite considerably. And we've always said we're responsive designers. So we listen, we communicate with our customers every day on social media. We hear what they're saying and we design in response to that. So we know that everything that we do is sort of informed by colour, confidence and comfort. So unless we're giving our woman that, but our woman's needs have fundamentally changed since we first entered the marketplace. And I'm sitting here in my Birkenstocks today, that wouldn't have happened pre-COVID, really.
Yes.
Comfort is non-negotiable. We went out, we surveyed our customers very recently and we asked, what do you want us for?
What do they want?
Overwhelmingly everyday basics, but we need to drill into that further now, because what does that even mean?
Yes.
That could be anything. So the next step now is to go back and do focus groups, drill in. People don't want occasion wear anymore. We know that. They don't want one-off garments. Like I was at my sister's wedding. Well, actually, I officiated at my sister's wedding on Saturday. No, it was an informal ceremony, and she got married on the Monday prior. And it was so hot. Everybody had ditched the Spanx. Everybody had ditched the heels. It was in a beautiful rural location. What was important was that people were comfortable.
Yes.
And happy, And so there's a great liberation in that,
Yeah.
And I think there are probably two camps, as there are with most things in life. There are the kind of extreme soigné, super luxe, super glam gang. And then there are the people who just aren't. And increasingly, like, I'm so low maintenance. I think this probably comes as a shock to people. I don't get my hair blow dried. I don't get my nails done. Look at your face. I don't. Like, I was at a dinner party recently and I said to everybody, oh, I've never been for a blow dry. And not only the women, but the men nearly dropped their glasses. They're like,
Do you know
what?
I'm shocked because it doesn't look like that. It's not,
No.
you know, I'm like, that's fantastic, but you look so put together.
Yeah, it's all last minute. Like, myself and Brendan used to laugh. You know, he'd have his outfit laid out the night before filming. I
Yeah.
would just like, whatever happens on the morning, that's what it is. I'm not a planner when it comes to stuff like that.
Wow. Wow. You mentioned earlier about being, you know, not spending massive money on outrageous things and your low impact. However, if money was no object, what 3 luxury items would you purchase tomorrow?
I've been lucky enough to have some amazing trips.
Oh,
So for my 50th, I brought my family to India for 3 weeks.
wow.
And we had the most extraordinary time. We really did. And I obviously went on about it so much that my dad decided he wanted to go at the age of 85 at the time. And he brought myself and my sister as an early inheritance to India for 3 weeks. So I went on a second Indian trip. And those 6 weeks of special time with family, it's just pure magic, you know. Like, that's the happy place stuff, you know. Traveling, experiencing new cultures, being with the people you love, you know. That so one of the items would definitely be that. The other item is going to be the beach house. I'm an avid sea swimmer. It would be in Ireland.
Yeah.
It would be, you know, it'd be accessible to Dublin. It would probably be a bit of a commune for me and my mermaids.
Yes.
It would be open house. It would have its own sauna, and it would be a little pop to the sea, so we can get in all year round. Yeah, and it would be a very informal hangout place, revolving doors. You wouldn't know who's going to come.
Nice. Is there a third item?
Third item. I definitely have a penchant for expensive glasses, so I might treat myself to a pair. Yeah.
Who does? I don't know anything about glasses.
Okay, what do you need to know?
I'd like to know, like, what's considered the ultimate, like, top tier glasses brand.
I don't really think about it in those terms. So I'm wearing a pair of Kubarum glasses from Gill's Opticians in Dalkey at the moment. A little gem of a place. But equally, I found a beautiful little glasses shop in Paris when I was there recently, in the Marais. I don't like overt labels on things, really.
Sure.
Although I kind of have an ironic Chanel belt necklace thing, but that's a bit tongue in cheek.
Yes.
Tongue in cheek. So for me, it's just about, I buy an awful lot on Vestiaire Collective as well. So I buy a lot of pre-loved.
What's your negotiation style
On Vestiaire?
Do you counter offer?
No, I would.
I
would make an offer, but it's kind of there's a seesaw of want versus negotiate.
Yes.
So depending on how much I want it, and then I like to sit it in the favourites for a couple of days and see if it still has the same impact on me.
Yes.
I won't dive in unless it's like, oh, gotta have that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Must. It's like there's only one of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, we'll tie it up. But one more question: what would your financial goals be for the next 5 years, or do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently studying. So I never went to college. Myself and Brenda went back and did a master's in business, equity, diversity and inclusion during COVID. And now I'm doing a master's in non-executive directorship with the Financial Times in London. So I have, you know, extensive board experience through the non-profits, and also I'm on the client advisory panel for Metis, who are my financial advisors. So I'm really keen to secure a couple of non-executive directorship roles, and it's really interesting. Like when in that cohort in the Financial Times, when we go over to London and everybody's there, and they're from all over the world, by the way, from, Peru and Uganda and Norway and UAE and, everywhere. I am one of these kids is doing their own thing. Like, I am a very unusual member of that cohort, I think, because of my entrepreneurialism. So most of them are C-suite. Most of them are just about to retire from senior leadership roles. I know that I bring stuff that is unique, from my connection to the consumer, my connection to the workforce through Work Equal, my communication. Like, there's stuff, there's a little alchemic mix in there.
Yes.
And I know I can add huge value to boards with that unique factor. I suppose the thing to be mindful of is that you have to cut through a cookie cutter version of what a non-executive director is to get to the point. So I know it's out there.
I love that you are unashamed about saying, this is what I want and this is why I'd be great at it.
Well, I don't know who's listening to this.
But it's also very inspiring, because a lot of people get on a board and they're like, oh, it just came out of nowhere. It's like, just
no.
They wanted it and they went for it, and it's okay to say that.
100%. The intentionality is so important in this life, and in fact, I started to be intentional very late in my career. I wish I'd started earlier.
Like, how late?
Well, I suppose when I was a stylist, which I was for 20 years, I think I was afraid of success. I definitely didn't start flexing into a bit of courage until I took the role with Off the Rails. And that unlocked something for me, because I didn't really want to do it. I didn't want to be a TV presenter. I loved my job. But I knew that if I said no, the opportunity would never come around again. So I had a responsibility to myself to try it. And if I hated it, walk away. And really everything changed with that move, because the public profile got higher. My sense of what was possible got greater. The sphere of influence got broader.
Yeah.
And everything came out of that, I think.
Fantastic. So be more intentional, and if you haven't got a pension, get one today. Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed that, and again, I took so much from that. Always a learning curve with you. Truly.
Thank you.
Thank you.